Right, please do take your seats. I want, before I run through protocol, to request the Honorable Ministers and the Chairman of UTB and the CEO to come and take their seats. Honorable Minister, the Honorable Minister of State, the Chair, Uganda Tourism Board, and the CEO, if you could come and take these front seats. They're yours, and then I will run through protocol. I want to welcome you, ladies and gentlemen, to this, the 6th Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo. Welcome to the city of many hills. Welcome to the Pearl of Africa for those who are visiting us. And if you're here for the very first time, as it is always done in church, please raise your hand so we know that you're here for the very first time. If you're here for the, can we clap for the visitors if you're here for the very first time? Thank you for coming. Now, usually in church what they say is there is someone coming with an envelope or with a flyer about Uganda. Clearly the whole day today is about Uganda. And so what we'll do, we'll ask the visitors to make sure that their neighbor who is Ugandan should be able now to give them the Ugandan flyer, all right? So neighbors of our visitors, please ensure that you look after our visitors and make sure they have the necessary information they need to have. So allow me recognize protocol, and we have a really lengthy protocol. And so for the speakers who will be coming after me, mine is to humbly request that you can say the MC run through protocol, because it will take about 10 minutes to run through this protocol. But I need to recognize all the stakeholders who are here in this room. The Honorable Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, retired Colonel Tom Butime. The Honorable Minister of State. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Minister of State for Tourism, the Honorable Martin Mugara. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. Please stand for recognition. Yes. And PS, I've been told there is a seat for you here. So I am taking instructions. For me, I am just a conveyor of information. Your Excellencies, the ambassadors who are here, and I want to ask for indulgence here, because if I skip any of you, because the team keeps bringing up the list, and so Your Excellencies, the ambassadors who are here, allow me to recognize you in your capacities, and I want to begin with our regional partners, His Excellency the Ambassador of Tanzania to Uganda, Your Excellency Aziz Mulema, the Excellency of representing Rwanda to Uganda, His Excellency Joseph Rutabana. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, for coming. We also have the Ambassador of the Republic of Egypt to Uganda. Please stand for recognition. We also have the Honorary Consul of Nepal, who is here and I think was on my list. You know, when I said Nepal, I remembered that he's also our host. So Dr. Sudhil Ruparelia is the Honorary Consul of Nepal. We have Uganda's ambassadors to the region, and I want to begin with our sister from Arusha, Her Excellency Anne Katsime, who sits in Arusha. His Excellency Paul Mukumbia, our Consul General for Mombasa. He's here, he's there, he's at the other side. Thank you very much for joining us. I want to take the pleasure of also recognizing our key stakeholders, and represented here is the Chairman of the Africa Tourism Board, Mr. Nkube Cuthbert. Please stand for recognition. Also with us from Uganda, but from the region also, Dr. Andrew Seguya, who is the head of the Greater Virunga Conservation. Please stand for recognition. Also here with us, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to recognize our partners in the sector, the Executive Director, Uganda Wildlife Authority, Mr. Sam Mwanda. Please stand for recognition. And in a very special way, our tourism board heads from the region. We have the Director General, Rwanda Chamber of Tourism, Mr. Frank Mugisha. Please stand for recognition, is there. And also with us, the different stakeholders, including our friends from Kenya. We have a very big team from Kenya. I know the embassy will be represented here. Kenya. And I know Lily will kill me, but allow me to recognize Team Diani, a very special team from Mombasa, and they have a very big delegation joining us this morning. So ladies and gentlemen, amongst our key stakeholders are our partners, and if you're here from the GIZ, please stand for recognition. GIZ team have been great support to the Expo. GIZ, do we still have a team here, or I know they might be at the other activities? Uganda Airlines, please put your hands together. Uganda Airlines, who've been flying a lot of our regional partners and exhibitors to the forum and to the Expo, and of course, all the other stakeholders. So ladies and gentlemen, allow me to recognize our hosts. The chairman of the board, Uganda Tourism Board, the Honorable Daudi Migereko, please stand for recognition. And if there are members of the board, please stand. We need to know that the board members are here. I know all of you are in several places. I know there are board members here. Thank you so much, board members, for joining us. And of course, before I invite Lily and also recognize her and the team, allow me to recognize the Member of Parliament who is here with us today, the Honorable Kabahenda Flavia, who is very critical in passing our budget. And we want to thank you, Honorable, for joining us this morning. So ladies and gentlemen, that's how big the protocol is. And that protocol includes our host buyers. Host buyers, if you're here, please stand. We want to thank you for joining us. The host buyers in the room, stand for recognition. We have a big team. Thank you so much for coming. Please take your seats. I know some others are downstairs. They will be joining us later. We want to thank you for coming to Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, and you're most welcome. We recognize our private sector players in the tourism sector. I think the Tourism Association President should be here, Herbert, but I haven't seen him yet. I know the association is represented here. We want to thank you for coming, and all the operators in the tourism sector. On behalf of the organizers, we thank you, and we want to appreciate you joining the Tourism Board for this 6th Powate Expo. I now want to take the pleasure of inviting the Executive Director, Uganda Tourism Board, Lily Ajarova, to come and make welcome remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our host, Lily Ajarova.
Thank you very much, Maurice. The Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Honorable Tom Botime. The Minister of State for Tourism, Honorable Martin Mugara. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Mrs. Doreen Katusime. The members of the Diplomatic Corps, the Secretary General of East African Community, the developmental partner. I know we have representation from UNDP, GIZ, SEDEP, World Bank, Board of Directors of Uganda Tourism Board, Board of Directors of UWA, of UWEC, of HTTI, the executive directors of the different agencies of Pearl of Africa, Uganda. Today, we have assembled here at the Commonwealth Resort Munyonyo in the Pearl of Africa, Uganda, to celebrate the country's tourism industry and the future that the sector holds for this beautiful country. For the last few days, the Uganda Tourism Board and the partners have worked tirelessly to ensure that the Expo comes to life despite the hiccups. The Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo, POATE, is a gathering of minds, business persons, and investors, and everyone else in the value chain to ponder on the benefits of tourism, its future, but also to assess our position and readiness as a destination, region, and even the continent. For the last 6 editions of POATE, the Expo has brought immense rewards for the sector through lobbying, government participation, and the convergence of minds in regards to tourism development and promotion in the country. A few years ago, which was 2020, we were joined together in this very same room around the same time, discussing the opportunities available for the sector players in the global marketplace. And about over 2 years, we are back here. And one of the highlights of the last POATE, which was in 2020, the physical one. In 2021, we still had a virtual one. But in 2020, when we had the physical one, the discussion was around infrastructure development and intra-Africa travel. I'm not surprised that post-pandemic, the African region continues to contribute over 70% of all the tourism arrivals to Uganda, and that we have the East African member states under the support of GIZ here with us today to reiterate the need to promote and support each other through interregional trade. I hope that the pipeline projects of brand development, content creation, and product development in the sector. But I want to introduce to all of us a new direction that we should all be taking with the tourism in Uganda and in the region. And this is sustainability and responsible tourism as the next emerging trend for tourism development, more specifically in Uganda. It is time to align all our interventions to this emerging trend. Honorable Minister and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's not that this is a new idea. It's not at all. It is just to draw our attention to the tourism practice and management that minimizes the negative social, economic, and environmental impacts that also generate greater economic benefits for people and the host communities. On the other hand, sustainable tourism has been defined by the UN World Tourism Organization, UNWTO, as tourism that takes full account of its current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, and the host communities. For a sector that contributed over 1.5 million jobs in 2019 and accounts for 2 in every 10 jobs, over 60% employment of women, the way of doing things could be much more streamlined to sustainable tourism. Over the next few months, Uganda Tourism Board, under the leadership of the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, and the key sector players in Uganda, will align to the practices that enshrine the 2 facets in the service delivery, product development, tourism investments, and promotion of Uganda's tourism industry. We will promote the use of recyclable materials, reduction of waste, but also promote conservation of environment while respecting the host communities. Our sector players will be trained, and we already started with this training. We have our partners. CBI is here. They already a month ago trained over 50 of the tour operators in Uganda. And we will continue with the training to improve on the standard of the destination with certification as well to ensure compliance and global recognition. Cycling back to Powate, I'm happy to note that the event has grown in leaps. This year, we are delighted to welcome over 150 exhibitors, including tourism boards and associations from the regions to interact with our local suppliers for the benefit of tourism. While the World Tourism and Travel Council projects that the global tourism sector is at 65% of the pre-COVID pandemic arrival, full recovery of the sector is expected in 2023 and beyond. Therefore, this year's Expo, Powate, the 7th edition, will not point to our recovery, but also highlight our readiness to host the tourism community once again. I also take this opportunity to welcome our distinguished guests, the hosted buyers, 100 of them that we invited, who are here with us, and they are majorly from our core source market of Africa, and some of them are from South Africa. Any from South Africa? Thank you. From Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and Egypt. And out of Africa, we have from the German-speaking countries, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, United Kingdom, United States of America. We have some from Italy and Spain. They are here to explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa, and for them to include our destination in their African itineraries in the next few months. That way, Uganda will receive more travelers and tap into its associated benefits, including increased tourism revenue and employment. This event will not be a success without the support of our ministers, the two ministers, our ministers who are with us today, Honorable Tom Butime, Honorable Martin Mugara, the Board of Directors of UTB, the technical staff from the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, the sponsors. We have had many partners who came on board to sponsor. GIZ sponsored all the tourism boards from the region who are participating. UNDP, we had the World Bank through the SEDE project. We had Uganda Airlines, Uganda Communication Commission, and various MDAs, the ministries, departments, and agencies of government of Uganda, and some of the private sector who supported us to transport and give an excellent service to our hosted buyers who already did the pre-Expo, but the rest will be doing the post-Expo tour around the country. Powate has now grown to become a signature event for Uganda's tourism, and not just an East African or African Tourism Board event. but a global event that will shine a light on Uganda's tourism sector. Yes, there were a few challenges, but that will not deter us from aiming for greater heights. Honorable Minister and distinguished guests, allow me at this point just to ask my team members from Uganda Tourism Board, if you're staff of Uganda Tourism Board, could you please stand up for recognition? I know that most of them are still out there helping, but there are a few of them in the house. Honorable Minister, in conclusion, I take this opportunity to invite both the private and public sector stakeholders to consider supporting Uganda Tourism Board to explore destination Uganda through Powate. I hope that all the agencies and corporations whose functions intertwines with Uganda Tourism Board allocate sufficient budgets to support the activities of Powate 2024. Honorable Minister, as we finish with the Powate 2023, we'll start the plan for Powate 2024. So I call upon all the partners to already join hands with us. With these few remarks, I welcome you, colleagues, to enjoy Powate 2023 and explore Uganda, the Pearl of Africa. I say all this for God and my country.
Surely we can do better than that. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Lily Ajarova. Honorable Minister, in my engagements yesterday with some of our visitors, a couple of things happened. One is that they said that Uganda probably has the best beer in the world. But I'm not sure whether it was after a few more beers or it was the truth in the statement, and I'm not so sure. But these people like their alcohol, so I think they know what they're saying. I know they know themselves. The second thing they said, Honorable Minister, is that they probably have never found a country that has the warmest reception anywhere in the world as it is here in Uganda. And this I want to say to Dr. Sudhil, I really want to thank your team, because one of them told me they had the best experience with your reception at the hotel. When they asked if they could get a taxi into the city, they asked, are you sure you want to experience Uganda using a taxi? And they suggested a boda boda. And this gentleman says he will never be the same after his experience on the boda boda. So I really want to thank you, but in all honesty, they are really grateful for the reception of the hotel because they are staying here, and they want to thank you for a great hotel that you have and the facility that you have here. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to recognize the resident representative of the UNDP in Uganda, Ms. Elsie Atafa. Please stand for recognition, Elsie. She's a key stakeholder and has continuously supported UTB in promoting both the country as a destination for tourism, but also domestic tourism to encourage as many Ugandans to see this very beautiful country. May I also recognize, representing the Secretariat, the East Africa Secretariat, Secretary General, the Director at the ESC, Jean-Baptiste Havjimana. Please stand for recognition. And the Honourable Members of Parliament, Honourable Kello Geoffrey Charles from Noya East, and the Honourable Bijira Nora, who are here representing Parliament, joining their colleague Honourable Flavia, because they continuously support the sector. I want to recognize our other stakeholder, the Honourable Boni Katumba, Chairman, Uganda Wildlife Education Centre. Boni, please stand for recognition. And please, if you don't have a lot of time, I know some of you are staying a bit longer, you will see some of our parks. If you can't go to the parks, please make your way to the Wildlife Education Center, which is right on your way to the airport. So if you could go an hour earlier than your check-in time, and then be able to visit the education center here in Entebbe. All right. May I take the pleasure now to invite the Honorable Daudi Migereko, Chairman of the Uganda Tourism Board, to come and make his remarks.
The Honorable Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Honorable Colonel Tom Butime, who is also our SEC member, Honorable Martin Mugara, Minister of State, Permanent Secretary, the members of the diplomatic corps, captains of the tourism industry, the various managements that are here. I've been cautioned by the Master of Ceremonies to avoid repeating what he has already talked about. He was very thorough on protocol and recognizing practically everybody. I'm normally very obedient. I'll stick to the instructions as given. Thank you. I want to take this opportunity to welcome you all to the 7th Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo, which is Poate 2023. Here at the Commonwealth Resort at Munyonyo, and I want to thank Dr. Sidir for the arrangements that you have put in place for us and for the environment that has made it hospitable for all of us. Uganda, as you may have discovered, those of you who are visiting, happens to be a very beautiful country. And the people are very hospitable. Now, these are attributes that are not widely shared. The issue is, how do we take advantage of the beautiful country that we have, that practically has everything in terms of what nature has to offer, and the hospitable people that we have, and be able to get the world to know about this, so that the country and the people of Uganda can be in a position to benefit out of this. Our view is that we are here to forge a partnership with all of you so that we can be able to see how to take advantage of the beautiful country we have and the hospitable people that we have and the Pearl of Africa as it is, so that at the end of the day, we can be in a position to market destination Uganda better, but also be able to maximize returns to the country and the players in the industry. Our guest of honor, that is the thinking we have at the Tourism Board, your UTB. But I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Honourable Minister, and the Honourable Minister of State, and the Permanent Secretary with your team for the guidance and support that you have continued to give to us as Uganda Tourism Board and our sister agencies of Uganda Wildlife Authority, Uganda Wildlife Education Center, Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute in Jinja. We cannot take this support for granted. Ladies and gentlemen, if you see us doing well, it is partly because of this kind of support and guidance that we have been getting. But at the same time, I must also commend the National Organizing Committee for the work you have done that has enabled us to be here today. But also without the support of development partners, of government of Uganda and development partners, we have mentioned SEDEP, World Bank, the CEO has also talked about UNDP, GIZ, and other partners, maybe we would not have been able to put up what we have been able to put up today. The European Union has always come in handy, and we shall continue counting on your support. The board and management have been working as a team, together with our sister agencies, and this one we shall continue doing. But without the support of the private sector in Uganda, as a board would not be in existence, and we would not be able to talk about the business of tourism the way we are talking about it. Therefore, I want us to support, I want us to thank all of you for your various contributions and support that have enabled us to organize this poverty. Without you, we would not be talking about this poverty. For the last few years, Uganda's tourism has been playing a preponderant role in sustaining our economy and sustaining the transformation program of the country. Today, and before COVID-19, tourism was the leading foreign exchange earner. So when we gather in a meeting like this one, with the critical stakeholders in the sector, everybody out there in the country knows we are discussing serious business. Because it is on tourism that we depend. So please, if you've been having reservations about the kind of partnership you want to go away with, please have a second review about this and make sure that you come up with a serious program, because the expectations are extremely high. Uganda has been highly rated as a destination. It is considered from world research to be amongst the first 10 in terms of being attractive as a destination for the period 2020 to 2026. But for us to be able to live up to this, we must work, and we must work harder to market our country and to do all that what it takes to attract tourists to Uganda. The water that we are hosting today is one of those events that can help us to ensure that we live up to what has been stated in various documents, but also to live up to the expectations of our people. As we recover to the pre-COVID-19 levels and continue to improve our competitiveness as a destination, our government, the NRM government, has guided that we focus on 4 priority intervention areas and immediately start working on them in line with the available resources. And these are: 1, sites and products improvement and development; 2, tourism infrastructure improvement and development, including tourism roads and air transport connectivity; C, putting in place requisite IC/IT capacity to ensure that there is instant experience sharing and to promote MICE tourism in the country; D, supporting a regional approach to tourism by marketing East Africa as a single tourism destination. The team from Kenya, you were here recently. And I want to thank you for sustaining the interest in our country, because there are things that you are extremely good at, And there are things that Uganda is extremely good at. I've been sharing experiences with the experts in the industry, and they are saying that if we put together what each of the East African states has to offer as its best, and we market this jointly, we are bound to register greater dividends, and we shall all be happy and go away smiling. I can see the Kenyan team has been smiling, and you will continue smiling. The Kenyans are better at doing business, and we are looking forward to doing business with you, and you give us the lead in how to make money much faster than some of us have been doing. We are certain that our success in accomplishing these interventions will make it easy for our international and regional travel trade partners to market destination Uganda and enhance the performance of our tourism sector. Fortunately, the leadership of our country is committed to pushing these interventions so that they can be implemented in a timely manner. We welcome all of you, hosted buyers and exhibitors from the different parts of the world, East Africa and Uganda, to form strong partnerships with UTB and our private sector to market destination Uganda. The presence of Mr. Kuthabat Nkube, I think he's seated somewhere, the chairman of African Tourism Board, and the representatives of the tourism boards from all the neighboring countries, gives our drive a big boost, which we must take advantage of. The new knowledge and approaches to be acquired at the seminars which are going to be conducted here, plus the B2B meetings, should readily facilitate what we are all expecting, i.e. a breakthrough into even bigger source markets and getting more tourists coming to Uganda, plus the associated benefits. Allow me to wish you productive engagements and to hope that you'll be able to enjoy your stay in Uganda as you explore the pearl of Africa. I say all this for God and my country, but Chief Guest, allow me to register apologies. We had excessive rains in the last few days, and they affected our program. It's rare that anybody can apologize for excessive rains, particularly for those who come from relatively dry countries, but we have had excessive rains, and they have interrupted our program. You will bear with us. Next time when you come back, we shall be in a position to do better in terms of taming nature. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, surely another round of applause for the chairman, Uganda Tourism Board. And chairman, there were some neighbors who said there is a solution, an African solution to taming nature, that maybe we didn't pay all of them. There is a couple of them we left behind. And so next time we need to consult all of them, and so we can deal with all of them. Allow me to recognize another key partner and stakeholder in the sector, the head of the Austrian Advormen Corporation, Dr. Ross Wither-Kremser. Thank you very much for coming. I want in a very special way to recognize a lot of you who are visiting us. We are in the central region in Uganda, and we have our lovely kingdom, the Buganda Kingdom, and the Buganda Kingdom Tourism CEO is here. Please stand for recognition. There you go. We want to thank you, sir, for coming. Our other stakeholders, NITAU, that provide the internet protocols for all of us, and all the other MDAs that are represented here. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's conversation, and Honorable Minister, I met someone from South Africa, and she's here looking for partners. And I think as you look for investors and partners in the tourism sector, you should start with Dr. Sudhir here. I know she's seated somewhere, so when you're looking for stakeholders in the sector, please come. But I know for a fact that a lot of our stakeholders who are in this room have been driving the conversation around investment in the tourism sector. A lot of the conversations you will hear through the entire Expo period will be around the opportunities of investment in tourism here in this country, opportunities for partnerships, and of course the conversation around sustainability. And that's what you'll probably hear a lot even in our meetings and side meetings that will be happening starting this afternoon with the MICE meeting that will happen downstairs. I will give the details to those meetings and where they will be happening very shortly. May I now take the pleasure of inviting from the Africa Tourism Board, Mr. Nkube Cuthbert, to come and make his remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause.
Thank you, Program Director. Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies from the embassies, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, what a glorious and what a wonderful morning to all of us. Thank you once again. And thank you very much. As I pause to say how much delighted I am to be here today, accompanied by our brand ambassadors from across the world, as African Tourism Board, to come and be part of this drive, which, by the way, defines our uniqueness as a continent. That defines and actually affords us to reflect on who we are in this beautiful continent and over above in this beautiful jewel of our African continent. We are so excited, we are so happy to be part of this great event. Ladies and gentlemen, and most probably to our honorable ministers, the objective of this great initiative, I believe it is to promote inclusive tourism and secure an equal opportunity, and thereby increasing opportunities that prevail in our motherland, Africa. The spotlight as well of this event is to bring travel and tourism in supporting our regional, our continental economies by fostering a sustainable, inclusive innovations and connecting our stakeholders to each other and also to the rest of the world. Therefore, our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the public and private sector partnerships, our plea and my plea this day, let's establish an enabling environment for travel business. And by the way, travel and tourism is big business that hasn't been fully tapped, especially in our continent, that hasn't been fully explored, fully appreciated in our destination. So therefore, may I advocate, as our buyers, our exhibitors who have joined us, and our visitors at large, as we engage in sealing deals and business exchanges, let us drive and support an enabling environment to be established this day towards a sustainable travel business in developing collaborative policies, which is very much fundamental. May I be allowed to emphasize strategically to focus in making sure that collaboration becomes entrenched in our industry as a business sector. By the way, honorable ministers, the existing barriers of integration that has limited us, the vast opportunities as a continent that could actually be enjoyed when fully appreciated, and also enjoyed when we work together as member states, as we work together as tourism boards, as we work together collaboratively and synergizing as public sector partners, our entities, travel agencies, tour operators, and all players that feed or part of the mainstream of our value chain within the tourism sector. This is our time, I believe, as Africa to stand as one and immigrating from the victimization of our own making by marrying some of the policies, unfortunately, and regulations that have kept us at the backdrop, right behind the rest of other continents of the world. I personally have faith in this great continent. I personally have faith in our motherland, with so much that is still embedded in the belly of our motherland that can be maintained, that can sustain us as a generation, and also the generations to come as we celebrate the Pearl of Africa, Expo 2023. May this event ignite in each and every one of us today, and may it afford us to reflect on who we are as a continent, on who we are as member states, on who we are as a child of the soil, a child of Africa. Where do we want to go? And how do we reach our destinations? My plea this morning, let's join hands together. We have so much to explore, and we have so much to enjoy. The honors is up to each and every one of us who have assembled in this great event to say, how do we work together? And also, how do we create enabling policies so that we all as Africa raise? I believe that Africa is one of the powerhouses of this global community. I have no doubt, only if we come together, only if we dismantle some of the barriers that has separated us as nations, that has separated us as brothers and sisters. We are here to enjoy. One of the basket lists I have, I want to explore. I want to go and see my cousins. The CEO yesterday said, no, we don't want visitors to come to Uganda, but we want visitors to come and explore, to come and indulge, to come and say, Africa, it is our time. Thank you once again. I am at home. I feel at home. Thank you, and all the best as we progress forward. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for our president of the Africa Tourism Board. And I'm excited you want to visit our cousins, especially those in Mugahinga. and even nearby, Ngamba. I think Lily would be saying, can we go to the island and see the chimpanzees also? Special recognition for the Ministry of Local Government. The PS is represented here, the Ministry of Local Government, who are the custodians of our parks. We want to thank you for joining us. As we move to invite the private sector, I wanted the President Uganda Tourism Association to get closer, Herbert. I wanted to talk about the birds. Herbert Biarahanga, as you come, please come. Herbert himself is a birder, and as you may be aware, we probably have almost 50% of Africa's bird species here in Uganda. If we asked Herbert to talk about the birds, we will have to wait for the cows to come home. So I want to request Herbert not to talk about birds, but to talk about tourism. And as Herbert comes, allow me to recognize the Executive Director, Uganda Hotel Owners Association. Jean Biamugisha, where are you seated? Yes, she's there. Jean, so those of you who want to discuss business, Jean, I'm doing marketing for you, yeah, on behalf of the hoteliers. Welcome, Herbert.
Thank you very much, Maurice. Honorable Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, and other government permanent secretaries who are well represented here, the leaders of the East African Tourism Platform who are today present, the leaders of the associations under Uganda Tourism Association, you are all here, exhibitors and hosted buyers present today, the cultural institutions I've seen here, media fraternity, thank you for the good job. Ladies and gentlemen, you are all welcome to the Pearl of Africa, the land gifted by nature. I want to first thank the Honorable Minister for organizing such a beautiful event to showcase Uganda as it is gifted by nature. Being a part of Africa as a statement is not enough, but I'm sure that some of you who have been able to go for the farm trip that was organized by Uganda Tourism Board, you have a story to tell how we are actually a true pearl of Africa. It also means that all the ecotone zones of Africa meet in Uganda. We have a portion of every ecotone zone of Africa meeting in Uganda. So the person who said this is truly the part of Africa had actually seen the truth. But you can only see this if you travel around, and that's what it is. Uganda Tourism Association is the apex body of the tourism associations in the country. It brings together 9 national level associations, Association of Uganda Tour Operators, Tourist Guides, Hoteliers, Travel Agents, Crafts, Community, and others. And all these come with a lot of experience for delivering quality services. How do we do this? To give confidence to the buyers who are here today and others, the private sector associations work closely with government through the ministry and its agencies to ensure that we respect the law of Uganda, Uganda Tourism Act. So all the members of those associations I've talked about work together to make sure that everybody who comes to this country, everybody who travels around the country is given the service that has value for money through the observation of the law. We also make sure that, in fact, in the last few years, every service provider must have a license. This gives confidence. I've been meeting many questions wherever I travel, that how can I get the best service provider in Uganda? So I'm giving you confidence that the strong ties we have with government, we do not allow people to come and do business in this country without observing the law. We even have a tourism security committee which makes sure that wrong elements who may appear any other time are dealt with according to the law. We also work together. You know, we were hit by COVID seriously, and I think everybody was hit, and we lost many people who left the industry. But we are now working together to make sure that we build capacity at all levels of service provision. We have so far, in the last 3 months, licensed 500 tourist guides. Many hotels, I don't have the number right now, but I remember over 400 were given licenses. Two operators, I think up to 450, have already been given their licenses, and others, to make sure that we track who is offering a service. So, Powate, Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo, brings us together to realize the opportunities that are given in this country. I have had a chance of talking to many investors who have come here. When they come, they don't go back. Even the people who come as tourists on bicycles, they don't want to go back. Why? The environment is good. Many years ago, this was a bush, a very huge bush here. But I must thank my friend Sudhir. I think he was somewhere. Yeah, very good. Thank you very much for changing this area. This area was once a bush, but because of the good environment that the government has offered for investment, you can walk around here. You may not even, I've just spent like 30 minutes driving around to find a parking. What does that mean? That we are serious in doing business. I want to call upon all the potential investors and the hosted brothers who have come today. Please go back home and tell others that Uganda is still virgin for investment. I want to thank the Diane community. The Diane community, thank you very much for the great service you gave us when we came to visit you. But also last night you gave us a fantastic cocktail. I was in the bush somewhere in the forest, like Molly said, I was watching birds and I'd forgotten. They called me that, where are you, man? So I drove like a crazy man. I said, oh, I'm supposed to be somewhere. I came in with all the birding gear, but they didn't mind about that. They made sure I got the best time, like we did in Diane. Diane is one of our destinations for weddings, and every Ugandan, they were told last night that every month they see Ugandans going to Diane. But we have also told them, let's get all the Kenyans come here for honeymoon. It is the only experience you can have that is unique when you go for honeymoon and you go and track gorillas and see chimpanzees. I can tell you, nobody beats us on that one. But why are we doing this? Our ambassador at Mombasa region took us last year. We had a fantastic time in Kenya, and we have started doing complementation, building itineraries together so that you can stay in Kenya and end up in Uganda. And this should go to other countries. Now that you are here, let us have this conversation going forward and make sure that we sell Africa together. When we sell Africa together, we get money together. We share. And when we share, we all become rich. Our colleagues in Europe who have come, look at this country. It is full of amazing opportunities. Don't go back home and rest. Please make sure you get contacts of these two operators, develop itineraries together, make packages together, not for 5 days, for 20 days, 40 days, so that we can make money, become rich, like you, and you also come here and you also come there as tourists. I thank you very much.
Herbert, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for our President, Uganda Tourism Association. Just a quick note as I invite Bachitone to entertain us for a very short, brief interval. Allow me recognize our lovely sister, the South African ambassador to Uganda. Please stand for recognition. I'm just making sure. Yes. Your Excellency, I apologize. I won't mention the name. I might bite my tongue. So I'll stay away from the name. But we like to call her Lulu. Your Excellency Lulu, thank you so much for joining us. So Uganda in January, and especially for our host buyers who are here, Uganda in January will host the Non-Aligned Movement Conference, Summit, and the expansion you're seeing Dr. Sudhil doing here is because we are putting together one of the biggest conference facilities here at the Speak Resort Munyonyo. And we will be hosting over 3,000 guests into Uganda in January. But also alongside NAM will be the G77 Summit. And so we will have, and Lily is very excited because she has up to about 10,000 people she expects in January next year. But that, she says that is for the next financial year, but she still needs numbers for this financial year. And her PS keeps putting her on pressure to increase the traffic into Uganda. So host buyers, feel free. You could go and have your meeting downstairs as we have this entertainment. If you want to stay with us, please stay with us for the rest of the opening ceremony. I want to invite Bachitone Dance Troupe to entertain us.
Ebigambo bisemerize nanyana, igambo bisemerize nanyana. Boja samba kurungi tugende, bisemerize. Boja munyanu kuremba tebeize, bisemerize nanyana. Bojo be kurenja, bisemerize nanyana. Bojo be bikorenja. Bojo be bikorenja. Nariana, samba samba tugende. Boja bembi koleja. Nariana, boja bembi koleja. Boja bembi koleja. Come on. bojo musambe sambe tugende dora bojo mukaire ko mukaire dora jaiwe dora musambe sambe tugende dora bojo kino kino semeri dora jaiwe dora bojo musambe sambe tugende bojo musambe sambe tugende dora bojo bukaire ko butakaira musambe sambe tugende dora yewe ri yewe a yewe dora bojo mutakilo teire dora yewe a yewe dora bojo musambe sambe tugende dora bojo kino kino semereire dora bojo musambe sambe tugende dora yewe yewe a yewe dora bojo musambe sambe tugende dora yewe a yewe dora bojo kino kino semereire dora yewe dora bojo musambe sambe tugende bojo musambe sambe tugende bojo kino kino semereire dora yewe yewe a yewe dora musambe sambe tugende dora bojo musambe sambe tugende dora
Thank you very much, Bachitone. Ladies and gentlemen, we just have a couple of more speeches and we should be done with the official opening ceremony. Please note that we will be here until the 29th with the Expo and of course the various side meetings that are happening already and will continue happening. There have been several sideline events, including yesterday, the dinner hosted by UTB for the host buyers. And of course, the rest of the week has a lot of activities, especially for our invited guests and our host buyers who are in the country for the next few days. I want to now move to our development partners, and I want to invite the GIZ country director to Uganda, James Macbeth Forbes, to come and make his remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause.
Good morning. I apologize it took me some time to get here. No, with a crutch over here. Good morning. Honourable Ministers, the PS who's here, my colleagues from the development agencies, the diplomatic colleagues which we have here, and the director of the EAC who is here with us, and all friends and gentlemen and ladies. It's wonderful to be here. And I hope that all protocol is observed. You can always get it wrong, of course, you know, not mentioning someone, but I mean not to not mention people, but I have to also get through my speech. So my name is James Macbeth. I'm the country director of GIZ here in Uganda. I also speak on behalf of our colleagues who are in Arusha in East Africa. No, Tanzania, which Arusha and East Africa, of course, the same. I have been here for about 3 years, but the secret about me is I started my GIZ career about 20 years ago here in Uganda. So it's my 20th anniversary, and I'm also a tourist myself, you know, with my children, and I have seen the tourist sector in this country, also these premises, develop over the years. and I've seen how much it developed. I've also seen the setbacks, you know, which had been in between. So I'm really happy to be A, in Uganda for the second time, and B, to see all the developments which which you have achieved, and where GIZ hopes to help you a wee bit in moving forward, of course. And 20 years ago, we did a lot of work in the Murchison Falls Park, you know, with the rangers and the park, and I have very fond memories of this, which I will not bore you with, okay? But thank you very much for letting me speak on behalf of GIZ. What is GIZ? Unfortunately, we're not a tour operator. We're just a development agency of the German government. And we're celebrating our silver jubilee, actually, with the East African community. This is why I think my colleagues have asked a silver-haired gentleman to do the speech. 25 years of cooperation in East Africa, and I think it has been a good time. The tourism for us is not so much about the tourism, except for me personally, but it's also a wonderful way in supporting economic development and my colleagues here in East African integration. So there's a range of development opportunities from my point of view. So there's employment, there's private sector development, and the other side of the coin, of course, is that visitors from near and far explore and understand and hopefully love what they see here in the natural heritage and the biological diversity of East Africa. And personally, as GIZ Country Director, this is what is an essential part of our work. It's if we can help the Ugandan and the member states, the government and the member states of East Africa to afford their citizens a decent life, decent work, a decent income, that's why I would love to. I'm very happy that we can be involved in your efforts. So the effects of COVID, you know, were strongly felt here in East Africa. I was here 3 years ago during the COVID pandemic, and but some operators I also noticed they had new approaches to local tourism, which I also thought, you know, there's always a silver lining with clouds, something. Okay, so that was good. But now look at this here in Munyonyo, the Expo, and all tour operators, the private sector, and the governments coming together. I think that's a big step forward, and I'm very optimistic that the recovery is in full swing. I would like to say something about how we support the tourism sector. There are various measures in place to reignite it, and I mentioned GIZ again, where we support you. To name but a few, there's capacity building for tour operators all over East Africa. Here in Uganda, we even have we supported training for drivers, heavy truck drivers, bus drivers, but you know, roads are probably a challenge everywhere in East Africa, and it's good to have reliable drivers for your tourists so they feel happy. But this is for Uganda. Maybe other countries would like to follow suit. Minimum standards for tourism services, the classification of accommodation and restaurants, and since 2021 it's marketing. And 2021 was the year where we had the COVID lockdowns all over East Africa. So that was a very visionary step, I think. And then one example is the Tembea Nyumbani branding and the campaign. There's a joint promotional video, and I hope you saw that earlier on. And these efforts have the potential to bring you, tourist operators, and the efforts have the potential to bring ever more tourists into this breathtaking landscape here in East Africa. Let me say something on the next steps. So we're moving on with our programming from the regional markets and EAC and the member states to develop or support you in developing a global brand for the East African tourism sector. And so the brand would be Destination East Africa. So an exciting future ahead. I would hope so. And I believe it's not an easy task in order to address the collaboration and possibly also the territorial thinking of countries and tour operators. And so that's a big step ahead, and I wish you much success with you, for you, with that task. And over the past 2 days, I think you had loads of meetings and workshops, and you came up with a draft, how that could look like, and I hear it was successfully, Marius, okay, and even a catalogue which on offerings in regional tourism, which has been validated and is ready to be published. Congratulations. And I'm nearly done. So I hope that we can in future support you in the marketing and the liberalisation of the tourism sector. And I honestly hope that all the support we give to you is helpful to you. Please tell us if we get it wrong, so we can readjust or whatever. But I hope that together we can drive the tourism sector forward. And I'm optimistic, seeing you all here, that you clubbing together is a very positive sign that we're moving in the right direction. So that's the secret behind GIZ's work, you know, sponsoring such events as the Expo here, in order to have the networks thrive. And so I'd ask you to please make the most out of this opportunity. Before I close, a personal note. You see how I hobbled here to the stage? One of the things you shouldn't do is play with your children when you're my age. Then you have an accident like this. And secondly, I kept thinking over the 6 months, you know, how is it for people with disabilities and inclusion? And I wonder how the tourism sector is going to answer me that question, okay? Just my personal note on it. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, honourable ministers, I wish you so much success for the next few days, and that you actually, when you leave Uganda and these premises, that you felt like it's a push forward, and it would make me very happy if we could have been a wee part of that. And I'm done. Thank you very much. Take some time until I'm down again. That's all right.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for GIZ. As the CEO mentioned, GIZ supported the invitation of the regional heads of the tourism boards, and they are facilitating them to be with us for this entire period, and we want to thank the GIZ for that support. I also want to recognize a very special guest here. She's the only one wearing a crown here, Miss Tourism 2022. Please stand for recognition. We, of course, in partnership with the Ministry of Tourism and the stakeholders under Miss Tourism, this initiative is to, of course, promote tourism in this country, specifically support the domestic tourism campaign. And she has been touring the country alongside one of the ministers, the Honorable Mugara. They just returned from Western Uganda with the Western Uganda route of the campaign under the Ministry of Tourism. I think it was the hashtag was Explore West, and we want to thank the team at the ministry for a job well done. I want to now take the pleasure, Honorable Minister, of inviting somebody who really loves this country, and I know that because every single day she meets any person, it doesn't matter where she is in the world, she's only talking about Uganda, not even Ghana, where she comes from. So, ladies and gentlemen, the UNDP resident representative, Ms. Elsie Atapwa.
Let me thank Maurice for his usual kind words, so a round of applause for Maurice. The Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Honorable Colonel Retired Tom Butime, who is the guest of honor, Honorable Minister of State for Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, the Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Doreen Katusime, the Secretary General of the East African Community, Dr. Peter Mathuki. I also wanted to recognize all the ambassadors. I see a few of them here. Ambassador Lulu, the Rwandese ambassador, Tanzania, and many others who are here, and heads of diplomatic missions accredited to Uganda present today. The chairperson of Uganda Tourism Board, Honorable Daudi Migereko, my own sister, CEO of Uganda Tourism Board, Dr. Lily Ajarova, the president of the African Tourism Board, the president of the Uganda Tourism Association. I need to do the bird watching with you, Mr. Herbert. Officials of the government of Uganda, the private sector, the tourism fraternity, the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me simply say, all protocols observed. I think it's good afternoon now. Are we still morning? Good afternoon to you all. Let's have some energy here. It's Puerte. Good afternoon to you all. So on behalf of the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, and by extension our United Nations family, let me say how delighted I am to join you all at the Spell of Africa Tourism Expo Puerte. It sounds like, sounds very well poetic. It sounds like a poem. We should tell the poetic story about tourism. And allow me to extend a vote of thanks to the government of Uganda, led by the Uganda Tourism Board, for organizing the 7th edition of Puerte, and my sincere gratitude to Honorable Tom Butime and the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities for inviting me and UNDP to be part of the first physical Puerte since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. Let me say, before I start even reading my speech, arguably Uganda is the most beautiful country on earth, and I'm sure my Ghanaians and Tanzanians and Kenyans and South Africans have their eyes rolling. but let me say, arguably, Africa is the most beautiful continent on earth. That's the most important. But let me try to speak from the heart a bit this morning and perhaps go off a bit the speech that I have. Why this matters and why this matters now, what we are doing today is not just a simple expo that we are bringing people together. Why is it an imperative for Uganda's development? And why is it an imperative for Africa's development? And why now? And let me say 4 things very quickly why it matters now. First of all, it matters now because we need to start building resilience to crisis and shocks as a continent and as a country. We have seen the impacts of COVID. I'm not going to look into that. We've seen how it eroded many gains, whether it's employment, whether it's revenue and others. We have seen that because of the impact of COVID, the Sustainable Development Goals have been retrogressing. In fact, in our Human Development Report, which we launched as UNDP 2021-2022, we have seen that human development has retrogressed 2 years in a row. And we have seen uncertainties and crises in our times. We have seen the impact of war. We have seen Ukraine. We have seen food crisis. And what is it telling us? And why we need to begin to look internally to innovate around some of the things that we have been gifted with. As we heard, tourism is one of those. And I think as we reflect on Puerte and moving forward, how do we use tourism and promote domestic tourism, have new products, things that will help us to build resilience to crisis and shocks. And that is very important because we are in an era of uncertainty. The second reason why this matters, and I speak as a development practitioner because development is being defunded. In other words, the days when we had abundant official development assistance where countries were getting money, especially ODA, are almost over. And this is because of a number of things, whether it's the geopolitics of the day, whether it's the interest of the day, whether it's so many things that are happening that is shifting where development financing is going. What am I saying? We must create our own wealth. Uganda must create its wealth. Africa must create its wealth. And tourism is one of those low-hanging fruits. Because if somebody comes here and spends, Mr. Herbert said, 40 days, assuming you take an average even of 10 days, they will buy banana, they'll eat plantains, matoke, they'll go to the restaurant. You're creating revenue, you're creating wealth, you're creating opportunities. And therefore, in an era where development is being defunded, we need to create opportunities, and tourism is one of those that we need to pay attention to. The third reason why this matters, and I know our brother from East African community talked on Mr. Nkube, yes, talked a lot around that, is the opportunities that is before us as Africa today. We have the Africa Free Trade Continental Area Agreement, which has been signed by our heads of states in Africa. Africa trade only amongst itself 16.6%, only. And when we talk about trade, we are not talking about trade only in goods, we are also talking about trade in services, of which tourism is a part of it. When I show pictures of Uganda to my Ghanaian friends who can afford to come here anyway, they think it's somewhere else, but not in Africa. In other words, we need to begin to look within the region. I'm glad that we have people coming from Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, South Africa. I even met a Nigerian sister friend of mine who are here. How do we connect the continent together to take advantage of the Africa Free Trade Continental Area at this time where we have 1.4 billion people in the region, many of them growing middle class who can afford to travel in the region? They have no idea what is in Uganda. They have no idea what is in South Africa. They have no idea what's in Rwanda. At best, we all want to go outside of the continent. That needs to reverse. And finally, the reason why this matters, and I think my colleague from GIZ alluded to that, the future of development. The future of development. Whether it's about with a continent where we have a very young population. Africa is the youngest continent on earth. We need to create jobs. We need to create livelihoods, opportunities. The future of development, it's important. And tourism, I believe, is one of those that can connect to that development trajectory of Uganda and Africa. Why? This is an industry that is connected to everything. Your agriculture depends on it. Your water security depends on it. Because as you protect the forest, you're protecting water, and therefore water security. Your agriculture even depends on it because of pollination of the birds and others. And so when you begin to look at it from the development point of view, that becomes a very important imperative for us to push forward. So I just wanted Honorable Time to try to make a compelling case that we don't just see it as tourism, I just came and I just saw some gorillas. It's about the development agenda of Uganda, of Kenya, of Rwanda, of Tanzania, of Ghana, of Nigeria, of Africa. And we need to begin to pay attention to that. And therefore, as I speak towards that, what can we do? I don't want to dwell too much about what UNDP is doing. What can we do? What can we do to realize this agenda? One of the things that I think is very important is for us to build community ownership and stewardship. When I went to Lake Bunyoni a couple of months ago, it struck me. I was just so fascinated. I'm like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful space I've ever seen. I saw a young lady and I just was telling her the story about, oh, you live here every day, you must be very happy. She just looked at me straight into the eyes and said, but I want to go to Kampala. I asked her, why do you want to go to Kampala? She said, I'll make money. And then I thought to myself, this is a multi-million-dollar view. Did we open her eyes to see? Did we create opportunities that allows her to engage? And therefore, that building that ownership that allows communities to feel a part, the stewardship, empowering, and I know that local governments, I heard were here, empowering local governments and cultural institutions to optimize this untapped opportunities that is before us becomes very important. The second thing where I think we need to pay attention to is to invest in local and community-driven initiatives. Again, I think Lydia was with you, and we went to this crater lake, and it was very beautiful. And I asked the owner, oh my God. She said, I own everything here, but for the crater lake itself. And I asked him, does the community have equity in this? She just said, no. But I think she felt quite uncomfortable about the conversation and just left. And so I was telling myself, how do we begin to, and whilst externally driven initiatives are good, How do we co-create with local actors to develop tourism products and services? And whether it's cottage industries, homestays, jewelry, whatever it is, that the person could have said, instead of selling the land and maybe buying a border and coming to Kampala, would have said, I want a 30% equity share in this. And if it's a $600, I was told, remember, she had brought the price down, $600 room, and they even have 10% of it per day, that's $60. So how do we invest in local and community-driven initiatives? It is very important if we want to create wealth and develop our people. The third thing very quickly is, and I know Honorable Migereko talked about it a bit, the infrastructure. We need to take it very seriously. I was very surprised when I heard that people now need to fly through Rwanda to be able to come back to Uganda to be able to watch the gorillas because the roads are not good enough for them. And so how do we then take this business more seriously, build private-public partnership in a more strategic way, in a way that we can invest in the infrastructure that will bring in and crowd in the resources, the funding, the jobs that we are looking for. And two things very quickly is for us also to begin to preserve and share traditional knowledge and culture. And I think that's a space that we need to look into. We have begun doing some of it with the ministry and UTB, development of cultural tourism products and services based on Uganda's diversity in film, music, dance, festivals, sports, and many things. And finally, we need to make sure that we adopt innovative and green-led tourism models and policies. This becomes very important, again, when it comes back to the resilience question that I talked about. So just perhaps to give a flavor of a few things that we have been doing as UNDP to support the sector. Certainly, we have firstly been supporting the creation of an enabling policy and legal and regulatory environment, again, supporting the government to prepare the regulatory impact assessment of the Tourism Bill 2022 to inform decisions by Cabinet, and also now supporting the review of the Tourism Master Plan. Hopefully that also segues into a new master plan for the country. The other thing that we also been doing is to try to create partnership with the private sector, especially the youth, and through our Youth for Business Innovation Facility and other tourism sort of initiatives, we have tried to provide grants to a number of young people, and it's quite interesting what they are doing. One of them, Tubayo, it's a Uganda company that operates an online marketplace showing Uganda online, and that's very interesting. The young people are really creating and pivoting things that we are happy to support. The third thing that we are also supporting is on the product development and diversification. And I'm glad our partnership with the ministry and UTB and the Toro Kingdom, for example, the Kyoto Hampango, which it was a proof of concept where we tested it 2 years ago. The Kyoto Hampango Fort Portal was full and you couldn't even get a hotel. And what was it telling us? These were Ugandans who were coming to be part of that engagement. It tells us the potential of domestic tourism. But also what we have been trying to promote is mountain tourism, the Mount Rwenzori Marathon that we co-created with a number of private sector actors. Lily and myself were running last year, and a number of people, you follow that. And also now we are beginning to have conversations. I thought somebody wanted to clap on that, so feel free. We are also now in conversations with our own Joshua Cheptegei, an Olympic champion, to try and push forward also marathons in the Elgon. And then we will move towards the Moroto as well. So there's a lot that we are doing in that regard. Two quick things that we are also doing is to try to push forward. You know, the world is changing so fast. We are in an era where before you finish university, artificial intelligence, for example, has taken over your job. And so how do you link tourism to the agenda on digitalization, for example? And there's a lot of work that we are doing with the ministry and UTB, whether it's on e-governance, e-commerce, grading systems, helping UWA with monitoring and research and prevention with drones and others. But also now begin to reflect, for example, we are in the days of metaverse, where people want to experience things, not necessarily being there physically. And how do you position Uganda and a number of young people who can create products and sell them in the metaverse? And so we are working with the Ministry of ICT on a digitalization agenda or roadmap for the countries for the next 10 years and see how we can bring tourism and others to play in this. And then finally, we are also trying very hard to promote the marketing agenda of Uganda. For a very long time, my own phone and my profile was, always Uganda. So everybody knows me. When I send an email, I always say, greetings from the Pearl of Africa. That was my own little way of promoting and marketing Uganda. But I think we have been trying to promote in different ways, whether through the Toro Partnership, whether through our work with Dr. Lilia Jarova and Golola, who actually climbed also and summited the Renzoris and the films that will be debuted soon. Look out for some of these things. So there's a lot that we are going into now, not going into all of them in the interest of time. But let me conclude, Honorable Minister, distinguished guests and colleagues, that tourism should not be seen as a peripheral thing. It's a by the way. It has to be brought into the core of development. And now allow me to commend our country, our beautiful country, Uganda, and indeed all the Africans who are here, the tourism industry, for the embodiment of resilience exhibited, especially in the face of COVID and all the other pandemics. The potential of tourism is enormous. We have a shared responsibility to make sure it is fully realized, and the duties upon all of us to push that agenda. I reiterate UNDP's commitment and the commitment of the United Nations family as a whole to continue to partner with you all here today, and those who are not here and those who are listening to us online, to exploit the full power and potential of tourism to advance the development agenda of Uganda and Africa, prosperity, and to drive inclusive and sustainable development. I really thank you all for listening, and hopefully in the next couple of days as we are here, we collectively can reimagine and reposition our tourism industry to move forward on a more sustainable and resilient path. I also invite you all who are visiting our beautiful country to spend a few more days to visit some of the most fantastic places you would ever see on earth. Thank you very much.
Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Elsie Atafwa. I'm glad Elsie did touch on sports tourism. It's a new space for us, and we are beginning to reap the fruits out of this. She spoke about the Mount Renzori Marathon, which in its very first edition was voted among the 30 world's best half marathons in the world. And this was by the American news outlet Outdoors. And the second edition this year, again supported by UNDP and UTB, will be on the 2nd of September. And this particular time, we are seeing a lot of interest from mountain runners, the people who do the circuits around the world. And there will be more attraction for this particular edition. And again, as Elsie said, you can't find hotel rooms in Kasese for this marathon. And so people sleep all the way in Fort Portal or Mbarara and have to drive very early in the morning to be able to catch the marathon. But that's the kind of interest we are trying to drive for this beautiful country. I want now to turn to the East African community and invite Jean-Baptiste Havajimana to come and speak on behalf of the Secretary General of the ESC. You're most welcome, sir.
Thank you, MC. Honorable Ministers, Honorable Permanent Secretary, CEO and President of Tourism Association, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the business community, distinguished officials, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, bon après-midi, habari za mchana. Those are the languages that we are speaking in the East African community. Don't be surprised. We are all getting there. We'll be speaking. Honorable Minister and the guest of honor, allow me to, before I read the speech of the Secretary General, allow me to recognize the teams that came from the East African partner states, and all the 7 partner states here are represented. And I will start by Burundi. Burundi, are we here? Thank you. Democratic Republic of Congo, are we here? Rwanda, are we here? Republic of Kenya, are we here? Republic of South Sudan, the United Republic of Tanzania, and the Republic of Uganda, the host. Thank you very much. Thank you, guest of honor. Thank you, MC. My role here is just to read the speech of SG, and I won't add any to the speech, anything. It is a great honor for me to be part of the 7th Pearl of Africa Expo 2023, and I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Republic of Uganda for organizing the important events in the region's tourism calendar. I am accompanied by an ES team comprising of the ES Secretariat and tourism boards from other partner states who are exhibiting in this expo in the spirit of regional integration. Participation of the tourism boards is also in line with the decision of the 5th meeting of the Sectoral Council on Tourism and Wildlife Management that your sectoral councils are, that encouraged partner states to participate in tourism promotional events organized by other partner states. We are indeed delighted to see partner states working together and supporting each other in promoting tourism. As you are aware, Honorable guest of honor, tourism is one of the productive sectors that have been identified as a priority sector in the East African Treaty and in the 6th Development Strategy. This is because of the role it plays in socio-economic development in the region. The sector contributes for an average of 10% to the gross domestic products on average in the region, 17% to foreign exchange earnings, and about 7% to employment. In addition, its strong backwards and forward linkages with the other economic sectors, such as agriculture, manufacturing, and trade cannot be gainsaid. Our treaty has clear and elaborate provisions on cooperation in this sector. These include a commitment to develop a collective coordinated approach to promotion and marketing of quality tourism into and within the community, standardization of tourism services across the region through implementation and minimum standards for tourism services providers, a common hotel classification system, and establishment of a framework of cooperation in the sector that ensures equitable distribution of benefits. In this regard, EAC registered significant milestones in implementing joint activities in the sector. Examples include the development of an East African classification criteria for hotels that was piloted here in Kampala in 2007 and is now undergoing review process. And after review, we will conduct a new classification of hotels, and you will get the stars of every hotel in the East African community. We also proceeded to development of minimum standard for tour operators, travel agents, and tour guides, preferential rates for East Africans visiting public tourist attractions, sites, and the regional tourism marketing strategy, organizing EAC tourism expos. We have already organized two, one in Tanzania, the other one in Burundi last year. The next one is meant to be organized by Kenya, either Kenya or Rwanda, so we will continue on that path. So having also standardization standards for travel agents and tour guides, preferential rates for East Africans, regional tourism, introducing of single tourist visa by some partner states. Rwanda, Kenya, and Uganda, under the framework of the Northern Corridor, they are using this single tourist visa framework. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2021, we collaborated with the East African Tourism Platform in running a joint regional tourism campaign dubbed Tembea Nyumbani campaign. I hope most of the audience here have participated in that particular campaign. And this campaign was aimed at stimulating travel by East Africans across the EAC region. The campaign was premised on the fact that EAC now, with a population of about 300 million people, following the recent entry of the Democratic Republic of Congo, is a huge market for our goods and services, including tourism services. With the growing middle class, there are many East Africans who have the capacity to travel from leisure and other tourism purposes. Intra-regional tourism, if well harnessed, can go a long way, not only in fast-tracking tourism recovery following the devastating impact of COVID-19, but also easing the seasonality challenges that has characterized tourism trends over the years. Ladies and gentlemen, as demonstrated by the international tourist arrivals that we have, the figures that we have, the sector is well on its way to recovery from the COVID impact. We are quite optimistic that by the end of the year 2024, we will be back on to the pre-pandemic levels in terms of tourist arrivals. The pandemic had taken the tourist arrivals to 2.3 million in 2020. Through aggressive efforts by partner states and concerted efforts at the regional level, an upward trend is being witnessed. The arrivals rose to 2.9 million in 2021, and now at 4.9 million in 2022. I think this is to be commended. Maybe partners said that they deserve a clap. So with the continued promotional efforts, such as the Power of Africa and taking into consideration of our endowment in terms of tourist attractions, we should be able to register more than 7.2 million tourist arrivals that were recorded in 2019, our golden year, 7.2. It is also in our plans, ladies and gentlemen, to work closely with the partner sector to diversify our tourism products offerings. This will focus on developing products such as conference tourism, eco-tourism, sport tourism, and golf tourism, among others, as stipulated in our regional tourism marketing strategy, and also to echo what the head of Uganda Tourism Board has said. We are emphasizing on development and promotion of multi-destination tourism packages that would encourage visitors to travel to more than one EAC partner states in a single trip. And this will go a long way in supporting the initiative on branding EAC as a single tourist destination that has already regional consultations on that already commenced. My technical team was meeting here for the last 2 days for regional consultations on the development of a regional tourism destination brand, and we expect to finalize the process in the course of this year. This is beside the brand, the strong brands that we know all partners have, and we'll be having a regional one that we help, that we promote that regional tourism destination as East African community. So this will help us to forge a stronger partnership in the tourism sector. I therefore urge all of you to engage with each other through the exhibitions, investment forum, speed networking sessions, and the seminars that has been lined up for you. I also urge you to work together toward making EAC an appealing destination for internationals and EAC citizens. We also have to see what we have, the best that we have to offer before we offer to others. Once again, congratulations to the Republic of Uganda, and in particular, the Uganda Tourism Board for putting up an impressive expo. Ladies and gentlemen, with those few remarks, I wish all of you fruitful engagement for the next 3 days. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that's not good enough for the Secretary General, so a round of applause. Honorable Minister, before I just introduce a couple of MPs to show the commitment of your colleagues in the House in supporting the sector, I wanted to support the statement from the Secretary General, the efforts by especially the private sector who are in this room in selling East Africa as one destination. Recently on my way from Kisoro, I was fortunate to fly back with some tourists coming from seeing the gorillas. It's amazing when you meet tourists when they've come from seeing the gorillas. They are really like babies. It's like the best experience they've ever had in the world. And so they were speaking about their experience around the gorillas, and each of them had a separate experience because they all saw different families of gorillas. And I think that's excellent because you all meet and you're discussing something very unique because neither of you has seen the other's family. But our chief guest, the best part was that a lot of them were flying into Entebbe from Kisoro and were connecting to other East African destinations. One particular group from Sweden was connecting to Arusha, and I'm glad Anne Kapsime is here because she must sell the same, so the ones in Arusha must come to Uganda. So they were flying to Arusha, to Kilimanjaro. Another group was flying from Entebbe to Nairobi and on to the Mara, to see the Mara. So what the private sector has done, they are now selling a single ticket where you fly in directly either to Zanzibar or Mombasa. If you go to Zanzibar, you go to the Serengeti. From the Serengeti, they are flying you to Virunga in Rwanda. And then they move you to Uganda by road. And then you're able, whether you want to fly to Queen Elizabeth or you want to fly to Murchison, you're then able to see Either Park. And then as they fly out, they fly through Mombasa. So they're able to experience the coast, see the animals in Tanzania, move to Kigali, see the gorillas. They see the gorillas on either side. Usually it's quite interesting that they want to see both sides of the gorilla on either side of the country. Then they go to Queen Elizabeth or Murchison and then fly to Mombasa. And that is how the private sector is trying to sell the region. I want to recognize the MPs who joined us. The Honorable Okello Geoffrey Charles, who is here, the Honorable Kolu Joseph Andrew from Toroma, the Honorable Businge Harriet, who is from Hoima, the Urban MP, Akiki, and the Honorable Were Godfrey Odero, who is here from Busia at the border. Your Kenyan brothers are here, Honorable. They are somewhere here. And we also have Honorable Mugoles Stephen from Bugweri. Honorable, thank you so much. So I think, Honorable Minister, we have a full committee now. We can have a session after this during lunch. The committee will have a sitting here over lunch. I want to now take the singular honor of inviting the Honorable Minister of State. You're only doing one job, is to invite our chief guest to come and speak to us. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause.
Thank you, Maurice, and good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for coming. I want to thank the members of Parliament, because I know there is a session going on, for having left the session and decided to be a part of this. Thank you for supporting tourism, members of the committee. I think let's clap for them, because they are committed. My job is just simple, to invite the Honorable Minister and the Chief Guest to make his remarks. But just in a minute, because we've all spoken about the Pearl of Africa, and I've seen my Kenyan brothers here, South Africans, I just want to make a quote. I've said this before, but let me just make a quote by the person who called Uganda the Pearl of Africa, and why he called it the Pearl of Africa. And this was Sir Winston Churchill, who was a 33-year-old member of Parliament then, of the British Parliament, and he had been appointed the Parliamentary Under-Secretary of State for the colonies. And he gave a very balanced argument about Uganda after the travel. And to date, Sir Winston Churchill is still the most popular, most influential Briton to have ever lived. So I'll tell you what he said. And he said, in his book, he was in Uganda in 1907, and he wrote this book in 1908, My African Journey. And he said, he went on to say, in my view, in spite of insects and diseases, of course then insects and diseases were a big thing in 1907, it ought in the course of time to become the most prosperous of all our East African possessions, and perhaps the financial driving wheel of this part of the world. So impressed he was with the natural vegetation and potential of the country compared to the rest he toured, all the way from the Cape in South Africa to Cairo in Egypt. I saw the Egyptians here. That he continued to write in his book that my counsel plainly is concentrate on Uganda. Nowhere else in Africa will little money go so far. Uganda is from end to end a beautiful garden where staple food of the people grows fast without labor. Does it not sound like paradise on earth it is the pearl of Africa. And that's where the statement started. And then he went on to write, for magnificence, for variety of form and color, for provision of brilliant life, bird, insect, reptile, beast, of vast scale, Uganda is truly the pearl of Africa. The kingdom of Uganda is a fairy tale. The scenery is different, the climate is different, and most of all, the people are different from anything else to be seen in the whole range of Africa. What message I bring back concentrate upon Uganda. And I just said this, and I want to thank the rest of the speakers. As we intermarket the region, that we continue sharing. If you have some business in Kenya, share with also us in Uganda. We'll continue doing the same. But I thought I would say where this comes from. With those few remarks, I wish to invite the chief guest and the minister to make his remarks. Thank you.
Well, I can add that after Churchill had made that statement, he went hunting. He went hunting in the current national parks. My colleague, Honorable Minister of State, Excellencies, the Secretary General of the East African Community, members of Parliament, members of sectoral committees of Parliament who are here, especially the Committee on Tourism, Trade and Industry, the PS of the Ministry, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Dr. Sudhir Ruparelia, our friend, I think he's here in many capacities, heads of government and departments and agencies, representatives of the private sector, the academia, our distinguished guests, all tourism queens who are here, the queens, my friends, the press, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Thank you for being resilient from 10, actually 9 o'clock is now getting 2, and thank you for sitting and remaining seated, but we are about to finish now. I wish to take the pleasure on behalf of the Ministry, Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, to welcome all of you at this edition of the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo 2023. Welcome. The tourism sector under the NRM leadership has blossomed largely due to the state of affairs in the country, which have been stable environment and peace in the most parts of Uganda that make visitors stay here, feel safe, and explore Uganda. The current statistics by the Uganda Tourism Satellite Account 2023 indicate that the sector of tourism has registered 19.3% arrivals in Uganda for holidays, leisure, and recreation, 40.9% for business tourism, 28.2% for visiting friends and relatives, and 11.6% for other reasons. Despite the soaring interest in visitation of Uganda post-pandemic, the country can still do more and attract more visitors. So we are not satisfied at all. A number of initiatives are in place to drum up visibility for our destination. And as such, the Power of Africa Tourism Expo is one such vehicle that creates awareness with the intention of multiplying the number of visitors that come to Uganda. Tourism remains one of the fastest growing sectors in the country, and it has previously contributed, as you know, to over 1.6 billion US dollars and accounted for 7.7% of the national GDP. It's our hope that as the economy fully recovers, earnings from tourism will more than double. As we prepare for the growing of numbers of tourists in the country, we need to be mindful of the standards of facilities and type of service we offer to our guests. I want to urge private sector players, the hoteliers and guides to register and get licensed for the benefit of keeping acceptable international standards. Uganda Tourism Board should continue enforcing regulations and standards in the sector to ensure compliance of the set standards. This will enable Destination Uganda not only to adhere to the global standards, but also keep our visitors safe and satisfied with the tourism offerings and facilities while in the country. The Uganda Tourism Board, therefore, should work closely with the private sector and Uganda Hotel Training Institute, UHTTI, to skill the workforce in the tourism sector through training of staff in the industry. A well-skilled and trained workforce will deliver good services that market the country well. Following the presidential directive last week, the sector received the government assurance on the refurbishment of the regional airports in close proximity to national parks, and the coding of these airports recommended to avoid landing at Entebbe International Airport. If the directive is implemented, tourists will now be able to land in these attractions in their private jets. So in other words, you can fly from Dubai directly to Kasese, then you can drive to Bwindi, Gahinga. You can fly to Masindi and drive directly to Machishon Falls National Park, Nyoya, Oyam, and those areas which surround the Machishon Falls National Park. The board shall also work with the private sector to brand all sites across the country that include hotels, as well as border points with the tourism content of tourist offerings. Finally, I want to thank all trade visitors, tourism boards, the region tourism partners for coming to attend this expo. I want to thank all those that have given us very, very encouraging statements here. I thank our friend, the UNDP representative, of course, as usual. I thank the president of the Tourism Association, our own president, with those very, very inspiring statements delivered today. I want to appreciate the private sector players for their participation and turning up in good numbers to showcase the tourism offering in the country. I hope the Expo will create an inclusive opportunities for the tourism sector through market transformation. I thank the organizers. I thank Honorable David Migereko, the Chief Executive Officer, Uganda Tourism Board, the peers, and all those that have participated. Don't mind about the weather. This is a country which has got interesting, some of us like the weather, others, but there you are. But it's a matter of organization, isn't it? So we shall organize better. And when you have rain, you also have blessings. Let me take this opportunity to say that the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo 2023 is now open. I wish everyone a happy stay during this expo. Asante zaidi. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for the chief guest. Our chief guest, I think Lily continuously celebrates every single month, and sometimes even without, sometimes investing in these celebrations, because the one most recent one, and the one a lot of you may not know about, is that there is a docu-series on Netflix called Chimp Empire. Now, Chimp Empire, on its very fast showing, which is, would be the premiere edition of the showing of the series, I think early last week, was the number one showing, or the number one attraction on Netflix under the family-friendly category. For those of you on Netflix, a lot of our young people on Netflix, some of us don't know these things, but under the family-friendly category, Chimp Empire debuted at number 1. Now, what is Chimp Empire, for those of you who haven't read about this? So this is really about the world's largest chimpanzee society ever discovered, navigating complex social politics, family dynamics, and dangerous territory disputes in the Ngogo sector in Chivale National Park. That debuted, as I said, in number 1 under the family-friendly category in the US market. The film, directed by Oscar winner James Reed, who bagged the co-director trophy for My Octopus Teacher, filmed in South Africa, of course, is narrated in the two-time Oscar winner Maheshala Ali, and was shot here in Uganda in 2021 over a period of 18 months. It debuted on Netflix last Wednesday, the 19th of April, in time for Earth Day. So we are celebrating as a country the docu-series, and I thought we'd put our hands together again for the team at UTB and the ministry for all the initiatives they are undertaking to promote this very beautiful country. And I know, for those of you, the host buyers who are here, one of our newest platform, and I know the ministry will kill me for saying this, is that Uganda is going to be pushing to become a destination of choice for the film industry in Africa. Because we have one of the best settings you may ask for here in the world, and I know that work is underway and I've leaked this. I know the ministry will not be happy, but I know work is underway to put in place the necessary protocols to support filmmakers and the industry, especially the teams coming out of Europe and the US that would be interested in using Uganda as a backdrop for their film production, not just featuring us in very small clips like Wakanda, and you pick Bunyonyi and you pick just a small bit of Uganda and have it featured in Wakanda. So ladies and gentlemen, I have just two announcements to make. One is that lunch is going to be served very shortly, and we are ready to serve you lunch. But I was informed that the bananas, the beautiful bananas in front of you, is not decor. So, Honorable Minister, sometimes we go to these conferences and they bring the artificial banana and they put it in front of us. And so I went to one of the tables and they asked me, did Dr. Sudhil put this as artificial? Are we supposed to leave them behind for the hotel? And please note that the UTB says these bananas are for eating. Now, you could start with it as your appetizer for lunch, but you could have it as your dessert after lunch because we are coming back here with our lunch. So ladies and gentlemen, I want us to be upstanding for the anthem so we don't have to play the anthems again after lunch. So we'll have the anthems and then we'll invite you to lunch. I'll ask that you allow us to take the VIPs for lunch first, and then the rest of us will be ushered to the serving centers. So may we all be upstanding for the anthems. And Honorable Minister, as we stand, this entire opening ceremony was broadcast live on Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. And we at some point also had Bukede, who of course had to go into normal programming, but Bukede TV was also broadcasting part of this opening ceremony. So we want to thank our media partners. Anthems, please.